Oh, we've all wrecked them.
I didn't wreck. I just ran over somebody. Remember? I did.
Who'd you run over?
I ran over Sarah Luck's leg.
Well, how about every time we got our driver's license, or when we got our driver's license, he had to get us in the car.
Yes, he gave
We
us
had to
driving
pass
lessons.
the Richard Petty
Driving
driving test.
Yes.
Y'all've never had a speeding ticket.
We are. Yes, we are perfect.
from
You know how many
the
speeding
perfect
tickets I've had?
child.
Perfect.
I'm probably in triple digits.
I think I've had 22.
I flipped a car one time leaving Martinsville.
And they had to stop the race.
They had to red flag the race because the closest
Ambulance.
hospital that
Or
the ambulance could
ambulance.
take us back to was the Infield Care Center. So they literally red flagged the race to bring us back into the race. But he's 87 years old and he remembers 86. 87.
He's 87.
87. He's 87. And you could pick a race and he could tell you his sponsor, how he ran, what was wrong with the car, and where he finished.
Yeah. And the people that finished around him. Like,
And the
what
people
else
that-
he can tell you the names
And
of
then
the drivers.
but I could sit there and be like, hey, what's your great grandkid's birthday? He knows it. Like he knows.
Well,
he knows around the
okay.
time.
Yeah.
He has to
knows.
keep that card.
Yeah,
you know, he has like
his
a
blueberries.
laminated card.
His blueberries.
His blueberry. That's what he calls it in his wallet. But it's like a family tree because now that we've all had so
There's
many
so many
kids
kids,
and
yeah.
some of our kids' names sound similar and they're like, you know, like Tucker and Tate are 10 days apart.
Well, he
Like,
calls them by numbers too.
Yeah.
he
Like
does
that's
call them by
13.
numbers.
That's
Or he's got, or he's
the
got,
great.
or he has
Greats or numbers.
alterations to their actual name,
Oh, yeah.
like Rhett. He calls them Arlie.
Arlie.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
L is just
The letter
L.
Yes.
Like
Right.
he doesn't process ELLE. Like
know,
it's L.
We just think, he
Here's
thinks
what-
it's funny.
It's
He's
funny.
just
Something that
good.
I think is really, because you were saying this, like you have such fond memories of him being so affectionate and he would play. And I think, like even this morning, he's 87. Is that what you said? 87. Before I left, 2 of the kids had crawled under the pool table and he had gotten down on his hands and his knees and was crawling under the pool table to try to get them. And when I see that, one, I think we are so fortunate and so blessed that our children know their great-grandfather and they have a relationship with him and he pursues a relationship with them. A lot of people don't get that. Family is so important to him. And as he's gotten older and since Mama's passing, I think even more so, he put such an emphasis on making
He
sure
does.
he maintains
Right.
those relationships and coming to visit. And like you guys, he will come on Christmas morning or Christmas
Yes,
Day.
he still does.
Yes.
Come
Yeah.
see what Santa Claus brought your kids on
I think a
Christmas
lot
Day.
of that's-
He'll make the rounds.
I think a lot of that started when great grandpa passed away, because he was kind of the first, and
I
then
have a great grandpa.
but Lee Boy went, and then 4 weeks later Adam went,
Mm-hmm.
and then we got to know we were blessed to have Elizabeth till I was 21 or 22.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
were.
I mean,
we were in our 20s, early
she still
20s.
came. She still
Yeah.
came to Christmas with us.
Yeah.
Yeah, she did.
So that led me, and to your point, when I was talking to my boys the other day, I said, do you know how awesome it is that you not only have a great grandparent, but you have a great grandparent that knows you, and you know them, and you'll remember him. And then I got to looking at it, and I'm like, I'm 42, and at the age I'm at right now, the king had 2 grandsons.
Oh yeah, I mean that's the other thing. They had grandchildren
They
when they
had
were very
grandchildren
young.
early, and
Very
then
young.
Grandma
was
wasn't
much
even
younger.
40.
She was in her 30s.
When Adam was born, she was
Yeah.
probably what, 36?
36. So
Isn't that
she's
insane?
my wife's age.
Yeah.
There's a picture
with a grandparent.
somewhere, and it's grandma holding a birthday cake, and she's what, 45?
And we're all around
46?
her. Like we're all
and
in
on the back it
kitchen.
says Mama's birthday, and it's like all of us, and we're sitting at the bar.
That's
Yeah.
crazy.
And I'm like, that is crazy to me to have like 5 or 6 grandkids.
Right.
At 45
At
years
45
old.
years old.
But also, like, even though he's 87, like, he's never, in my mind, ever been old.
Yes.
Like,
I
he's
know.
never been,
Yeah.
he's our grandfather, but, like, he's never been old to me.
He's never
Well, he
been
still
old.
goes 7 days a week.
Yeah.
I mean, he still he goes to every race.
That helps.
No.
I mean, he's mobile. The softening up of Grandpa started when he really started losing people.
Mm-hmm.
When he
Yeah.
started losing people in his about 60s. In his 60s, because
Yeah.
Dad, this is crazy to me. Dad was my age right now when he lost a 19-year-old son.
Oh, really?
He was 40 years old. When Adam passed away, he was
right.
19 and Adam was 40.
Like, I would.
So I think
it doesn't.
about
Things you don't think
you
about.
don't think
yeah.
about it. You don't think about it. And I sit there and go, I'm 42 with 3 kids, and I can't imagine losing a child. And then my dad did that at 40, and the king did it at 60. And I think that when Adam passed away, the king really softened up to I love yous and
Yeah,
hugs.
I agree with that.
And was more of a grandparent later on in my life than he was as I was a child. He was still a great grandparent.
Yes.
And my parents, my mom and dad, were both great parents. But the older that we've gotten, he is more attentive
He is.
to his great grandkids, to his grandkids, to everybody
I think
now.
there was an element where he and Memo balanced each other, where it
Oh,
was like,
100%.
I race, I go to the track on the weekend, I do this, you handle
Everything else.
everything
Yeah.
else.
She didn't miss anything.
She didn't miss anything.
didn't.
And so when we would be together for holidays or dinners or birthdays, that was his chance to be involved. But beyond that, there wasn't a pursuit of but then after losing Adam and Lee Boy and
his mom, and Elizabeth.
and Elizabeth, I think the pursuit of
And his
what's
brother.
going and
His brother
And
more
Mark.
recently.
yes,
his brother.
more recently, but I think the pursuit of what's going on in your life. What are your kids interested in?
Oh, yeah.
I want to see videos. I want
like
to see
he-
pictures.
And he does say, like, I love you. Because,
does.
he comes from, like, a generation that
That
doesn't
didn't.
really say
So
that.
that's one of my
But he'll
favorite
do
memories
say, I love you.
with him recently is doing that book. And so I had a year where Jody was a huge help with that, where Jody would get the question and she'd ask him and type his answer, and then I would call him at night and go over his answer with him. And a lot of those questions I did in that book, I didn't want them to be racing related.
Yeah, but
'cause-
tell him what he said when you gave it to him for Christmas.
Oh, so
How excited was he to get that present? Because it just seems like that was something he was like, yay!
yay! I gave him this book that was a question a week, and so I told him when I gave it to him, I said, "Look, this is a gift for you, but it's really a gift for me, and I want you to answer these questions so that one day when we don't have you anymore, I have all of these answers." And he was like, "So you give me a job? You give me a job?" And I was like, "Just look at it like you're giving me a gift." And he's like, "It's a job."
It's a job.
And if it wasn't for it being COVID year and everything having shut down that year, I don't think he would have done it.
Yeah, you're right.
But I
it was during
think
COVID.
it kind of, I almost think there was a part of it that maybe gave him something that he looked forward to every week, answering those questions.
Yeah.
And I would go through that hard drive of pictures that we have, and I would text pictures, and I'd be like, ask him what this picture goes with, or will this picture fit here? And it turned out that he liked my idea so much that he ordered books for everybody.
Yeah,
so
yeah.
I supplied
That's what everybody
his
got for Christmas
gift
presents
for
for
the
next
following
year.
It's a
year.
great present.
It was a great present.
It is a good present.
That, along with the cowboy hats, were a great present that he picked out, and the gumball machines.
Yep.
When Grandpa took over Christmas,
I don't know, man. He gave me and Adam a Christmas present one year. He gave us four-wheelers.
yes.
Do y'all remember
Yeah, I
the
do.
little blue Ford?
Yeah, same year we
Yes.
got the golf cart that I wrecked.
No, we got these.
I like
we got dollhouses. Remember?
Okay.
But I
We all
like that
got
you just said,
dollhouses.
is that the year that we got a golf cart that I wrecked? Because we got four-wheelers, and 5 minutes after we had them, both me and Adam wadded them up into a barbed wire fence.
We've all wrecked
To-
something
to
over
the
there
point where
somehow.
Adam had to go back to the house,
Remember, I
and they
ran
had to go
over
get
Sarah's leg.
Doug to cut me out of a barbed wire fence. Oh, we've all wrecked those.
I didn't wreck. I just ran over somebody. Remember? I did.
Who'd you run over?
I ran over Sarah Luck's leg.
The golf cart that looked like the truck.
The little black
I
golf
wrecked
cart
it.
truck.
I wrecked it the first day we had it.
We
within
all
like
got that
5
golf
minutes.
cart.
And
You
then
hit the
I wrecked
fence.
it one time.
Yeah,
y'all
it
ever think-
busted Richard's lip
Do you ever think
open.
like he gave us stuff like that to drive, and then we go tore it up, and he looked and goes, "Where did the driving stop?"
Where
So
the talent
I
stopped.
got it, Adam got it, Kyle got it, but what happened to these other ones? They
Yeah, we
this
tore
one's
it.
in a fence, this one's in a tree, this one's driving over their cousins.
But she didn't wreck
Like-
it. She didn't
She
wreck
wrecked
it.
it.
She just ran over someone.
The door flew open and she flew out and she just ran over.
Hey, I had a golf cart one time.
Don't you
And
remember that?
listen, I had a golf cart, and she had to be 5 or 6. and-
that should be Grace right there. I was 5 or 6.
She was 5 or 6.
And I did whatever my big brother told
and I
me
had
to do.
and I had a golf cart, so I made her lay down on a gravel road, and I packed gravel on one side of her and packed gravel on the other side of her, and I got back about 50 yards, and I drove wide open and drove
He told
over
me he
because I was
gonna
going to jump her.
over me.
I was going to jump her, but all I really did was just run over until she's just rolling behind me.
That time we egged you, Adam and I.
Yeah, they egged me one time. They threw eggs at me, and it hit me in the face, and By the time I could see, I
We
ran
wrecked
into
another golf cart.
I ran into a tree and I broke like 5 ribs and busted my mouth open. Had to go to the emergency room.
Well, how about every time we got our driver's license, or when we got our driver's license, he had to get us in the car.
Yes, he gave
We
us
had to
driving
pass
lessons.
the Richard Petty
Driving
driving
test.
test.
We all did that.
That was scary.
Did you
Not
get the
getting in
never
a car
stick your
with a
hand
driver's ed
inside?
teacher. Getting in the car with him was scary.
With him was scary.
It was very
He
scary
wore his
for
helmet
me.
with me.
He didn't with me.
I would have too. That's a great idea.
Seriously,
gonna
he
lie, I
took
should
a
do
racing
that now.
helmet. He took a racing
Yeah,
helmet.
That's a good idea.
And he took me somewhere way out here and then said, get back to the house. And I said, I don't know how to get back. And he said, well, too bad. You got to figure it
Yeah.
out. You should have been paying attention.
Did he teach all you?
He told me not to ever look behind me. Don't worry about people riding.
Yeah, that's
on the-
solid advice.
That
He told me never put your hand
Look
in the inside of
forward,
a steering
don't look
wheel.
behind.
Never put your hand on the inside.
Don't ever reach into a steering wheel and hold onto a steering wheel like this. Because if you ever get hit and it'll snap your wrist.
You know
so
what he
always
told
keep
me?
your hands.
What did he tell you?
You probably not to drive.
He told me you did perfect.
Well,
Well,
you
that
must
was
have
at
been
the start.
Wait a minute.
only one.
Wait a minute.
Okay,
wait a
that was
minute.
before you
Wait a minute.
almost got your license taken away from getting a
She doesn't
so many
remember
tickets
this.
and then going to driving
Oh,
school.
yeah, that's right.
Oh, I did.
I
We have a
did-
lot of speeding tickets.
Didn't you go to
know.
defensive driving?
Yes, I've been to
Yes.
like 4 different
Yeah.
defensive driving
Yes.
classes.
Didn't we do one together?
We did do one together.
we had
and
to
we
take-
got pulled over by the same guy.
Yeah, we had to take one together. Hey, look, the other day I was standing.
that's
I was down
bad.
in High Point and I was talking to some police officers that were down there, and he said, and a guy looked at me and he said, "You're a petty, aren't you?" And I said, "Yes, sir." And he said, "Pretty sure I gave you a speeding ticket about 4 years ago." I said, "Probably."
I don't know.
I don't remember it. Martha Jane used to have. Remember that folder she had on her desk? That if you ever got a speeding ticket, you just walked in and put it in the folder. Y'all never did that.
No.
Did you never
Me
do
and
that?
Maggie
No,
were
because
doing
knock
that.
on wood,
Knock on
I've
wood, me
never
and
had a
Maggie
speeding
never had
ticket.
speeding
You
tickets.
used to.
We
What?
come from Sharon, the
Yeah.
perfect.
Y'all have never
Yeah.
had a speeding
Yeah.
ticket?
No, never had a speeding ticket. No.
How many
And
times?
neither has neither. My
I've
mom
gotten
has
stopped.
Not. Oh no,
I've
no, no,
just
no.
had
Mom has
warnings.
one. Mom got one like 2 or 3 years ago in Kernersville, going to your house.
yeah.
That's right. That's the only one. Yes,
Y'all have never had a speeding ticket.
we are. Yes, we are perfect.
from
You know how many
the
speeding
perfect
tickets I've had?
child.
Perfect.
I'm probably in triple digits on how many speeding tickets I've had.
I think I've had 22.
Have you ever wrecked-
You remember the number?
Have you ever wrecked a car?
That I do remember.
Have you ever
Say that, Austin. Not gonna do it.
Have you ever wrecked a
don't
car on the street? Never.
I did one time.
I've had
right
fender
here,
benders.
Right here in Randleman, I hit a girl, and her dad was the fire chief, and
I
I said,
remember
"Let's
that.
just go down to the race shop and we'll get it buffed out."
See, y'all never had to worry about so I used to tear
No,
stuff
you
up,
flipped
and
a
I would.
car leaving Martinsville,
I flipped a car one time leaving Martinsville.
and they had to stop the race.
They had to red flag the race because the closest
Ambulance.
hospital that
Or
the ambulance could
ambulance.
take us back to was the infield care center. So they literally red flagged the race to bring us back into the race. And remember, Mom was sitting up on top of the pit
She was
box.
so
What
mad.
was your first
It's-
car?
A Jeep Wrangler.
No.
No,
You ran
he
that
had
into a
something-
guardrail.
Yeah, he
Austin,
had
you've
something
had
before the
literally
Jeep Wrangler.
50 cars.
Jeep Wrangler.
The first
counting.
car I had was a 1982 diesel Mercedes Benz.
I don't remember that
I don't
one.
remember that.
Terry and Jerry bought it for Dad at a junkyard.
I don't remember that.
I remember the Jeep,
And then I had the
and then you
Jeep.
had the Lexus, the red, the red
And then he had
Lexus.
a Dodge Durango, and then he had a Dodge pickup truck. That's the one he flipped after Martinsville.
let's just say
Then he
that I've
wrecked
had
the
10 cars.
Crossfire, and then he
Let's say I've had 10
right.
cars.
Okay.
Out of those 10 cars, I wrecked 10 of those cars.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wrecked all of them.
So the 11th
Totaled.
car
Totaled.
I totaled about 8, but I can't tell you that because that's insurance. But anyway, let's say I had on the 11th car, I personally had to go buy. Since the 11th car, I've never wrecked anything because then I had to pay for it.
That's true. Let me tell a Lee Boy story.
Silly boy.
I
He
didn't.
called you
Lee Boy didn't.
No, she's not telling that story. She's
What?
telling her story. Nothing.
You don't have to tell that story.
You got a Lee Boy story?
No, I'm not. No, we're not.
Hey, tell your Lee Boy story.
Not telling
Okay,
her
my Lee Boy
Maggie.
story is if Lee Boy was still here and I was in a lineup, he could not pick me out. He did not know me. He did not know that Kyle had a daughter, I'm pretty sure. And so I remember being in the race shop over here one day, and Adam had to have been 17 or 18.
Okay.
So I would have been like 14, somewhere around there. And so I walked through, and Adam had that obsession with bubble gum. And he was standing there talking to Lee and, like all the hand movements and the cars and whatever they were talking. And I stood there and I waited and I said, "Adam, can I have a piece of gum?" And he goes, "No." And I said, "Please give me a piece of gum." And he goes, "No." And I looked at Lee Boy and I said, "Tell him to give me a piece of gum." And Lee Boy looked at me and said, "I don't know who the hell you are. Why would I tell him to give you anything?"
That sounds just like him.
Y'all remember he used to hit golf balls?
He
Yeah.
would purposely try to hit cars.
But he would always
Yes.
try to hit
Yeah.
Adam.
Yes.
He would always try to hit. Anytime Adam would come in, he would turn and aim at Adam's car to hit Adam. He loved me. I called him Mr. Petty to the day he died. And he loved...
I never talked to him
He thought I
again.
was a boy.
He thought Hannah was a boy.
I had a boy
He asked
haircut.
Hannah how baseball,
I had
how's
a boy
baseball going.
haircut in what, 3rd grade? Maybe.
We were getting on the bus to go to Daytona.
And he asked me how baseball was going. Yeah, that's.
What did you say to him?
You started
good.
crying.
I
You started
crying.
crying.
He thought I was a boy. I know I had a pixie haircut, but still, it was bad.
Oh my goodness. Oh, that is funny.
I tell you, one of my favorite, and I know I asked this question way back. We were talking about favorite racetrack memories. Growing up going to racetracks, because I think we all grew up going to racetracks a little bit different than the average race fan. Because we would leave 4:30 in the morning sometimes to go to a race, and we would all pile together, and Grandma and Grandpa would drive us, and we would get down there, and we all had to stay and
We had a cooler lunch.
had a cooler lunch. But if
Egg salad sandwiches.
egg salad sandwiches, which stunk the car to high heaven. But like if Dad or the King, their day ended early, and the other one was still racing, we had to stay at the racetrack till the other one was done, and we all came back together. But I think my favorite racetrack memory of all time was when Adam won the ARCA race down in Charlotte, and seeing Dad and Grandpa's face when they saw the 4th generation win a big race. I remember seeing the pride on both their faces going, Lee Boy started it, but really King kept it going and really built it. And then Dad did it, and then Adam did it. And I remember afterwards we went up to the suite, and Adam was eating Lucky Charms. And I remember the King and Dad
He
just
loves
talking to
Lucky
him.
Charms.
Oh, he
He
loved
did
it.
love Lucky
But I remember
Yeah,
sitting
you're
there,
right.
and it's cool to me because I think, through the Petty YouTube channel, like hearing Dale Inman and the King talk about old stuff, and then hearing Sharon and Lisa and Rebecca. Like I watched that one video where your mom and Sharon and Rebecca would talk about how they would go to racetracks as little kids, and they would sit in the van, and then the race would end, and they'd go get in the car, and Dad and Grandpa would have just driven 5 hours in a hot car to go get in the car and try to crank it, and it wouldn't crank because Kyle and Sharon and all them left the radios running. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So to me, like getting to see these old stories and hear these old things are great. But like I will always remember sitting up in that suite listening to Dad, Adam, and the King break down the race, and how the King would look at him and go, "I'm just so proud of you." Like and Dad going, "I'm so proud."
was.
Like that. That's one of the coolest Petty family memories that I think all at least Dad, Adam, and me and the King would all agree with was one of the coolest things to see.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because I mean that really was like there was a torch being passed to the next one.
Yeah. My favorite racetrack memory has nothing to do with racing. But when we were leaving and Dad was in the back seat, Mom was driving and the window was cracked and Dad was overheated. Do you remember this? And
Is this when he threw the water bottle?
Yes, people were banging on the windows, trying to get him to open the door and sign autographs, and someone threw their water bottle and it went through the window and it hit my dad.
Dad knew who it was.
Dad knew who did it.
Yeah, he saw who did it.
And the guy took off running. Once he realized it like went through the window, he thought he was just going to hit the car. And Dad, I think, played football.
He played football and basketball and baseball,
and all
of
the
them.
stuff. Well, he
flung
flung that
open the gate.
minivan door open, grabbed that, and pitched that water ball and pegged that dude in the back of the head.
Yeah, just it chunked him for like 3. Look, we left. My favorite was we left Daytona one time, and Daytona used to have to go through that 2 little tunnel over there in turn 4 or whatever it was, and it was tight and it was scary.
Yeah.
And I think me and you were sitting in the back of the car, and Adam was driving us out, or no, Dad was driving us out, and there was a drunk guy behind us.
This. And he
Drunk guy behind us, and he kept running into the back of us.
In the tunnel.
And mom was like, "Yo, please come over. Like, I'm worried about you. Get over here." And we're crawling over the seats, and this guy just keeps running in the back. So Dad
pulls right to
the edge of the tunnel, just far enough that he could open his door. And he gets out, and he goes over and gets a cop. Says, "Hey, there's a drunk guy behind me. He keeps running into me." The cop said, "Okay, we'll take care of it. Go ahead, Mr. Petty." Dad gets back in his car. Dad pulls forward. The other guy gets out. You look in the back, and he's pulling this guy out of the car for drunk driving. But remember, he's just running
just
into the back of us.
ramming the back of the car in the tunnel.
We love race fans.
Well, my favorite racetrack memory is kind of the same thing, like not having anything to do with racing, but like the logistics of getting in and out of the racetrack with Richard
Yeah.
Petty is like the best thing ever.
Yeah.
Like, because people would try to stop him, you know, and
he doesn't
he's
stop.
not stopping. Like,
he doesn't
he
stop.
doesn't need to tell you who he is. Like, he's going to keep on going. And one time we went somewhere, and I don't know where we were, but there was a bunch of cones, and he hit every cone. They were just flying up in the air. I mean, he would boom, boom, and they were just. Do you remember that? And Grandma was screaming,
Grandma
"Stop!" And he was
always
like,
would
He
scream
was like,
at
"No,
him.
I'm
Richard.
going this way.
Richard.
Nobody's
You get
gonna
ready to-
stop
you get
me."
ready to hit this person.
I mean,
You get ready
it
to
was
hit that
completely blocked off. He hit every orange cone. I mean, they were
Or
flying
that
up
we
in
would
the air.
use phone cards as hard cards.
It's hard cards, yes.
Remember?
If you
Yeah,
didn't have one,
if you didn't have one, you held a
Yeah. We
and you
would
just
through the window.
Remember the time when though Adam had the phone card sponsorship?
Yeah, that's what we would use.
Yes,
Yes, to make it look like we all had hard cards.
Do you remember the story where he was driving up to Martinsville or Richmond or something, and he got pulled over, and the cop asked him for his driver's license. And remember that he used to have the Visa.
Oh yeah,
With
he
his
had
face
his,
on
his
it.
credit card.
And he gave him his credit card, and the state trooper looked at him and said, "Well, Mr. Petty, this is a nice Visa card, but I'd love to have your driver's license."
Yep.
And then the other time, the guy told him he was going to arrest him. The king said, "That's fine." So he just got out of the car, went back and got in the back seat of the cop car and said, "Let's go.
Yep.
Ain't got time to wait."
Yep.
One time, my mom left her wallet on the hood of the car leaving Martinsville. I rode back with them, and we spent more time walking up and down a ditch on the side of that road, me and Mama and Peppa, looking for her wallet.
Did you find it?
We found it.
Okay, I have another Charlotte. This is a Charlotte story. So, do you remember at the end of the race, you know, they'd have fireworks.
Mm-hmm.
If you're sitting in the condo so you can see the track. And you know, when you're little, like, you don't really understand it, but the people were just drunk. Like, all those people were drunk. And you know, like I said, when you're young, you don't really understand that. Remember how they used to sit on their coolers and slide down the
Yeah.
Remember,
Pool
and we
races.
used to watch them because they would make it about halfway down, and then they would just roll.
down.
Yes.
And
But we would cheer for him.
Yes.
We would be up on
But
the
we
top
thought
yelling
it was
for him.
funny.
Yeah, it was great.
You know, but they were just
remember
drunk.
that.
They thought
if we were
They did it all the
smart,
time.
If we were smart, we would have looked at that back then and thought about, you know, what if we put a motor on a cooler, and now you can buy a cooler with a motor on it.
Yep.
Y'all, we could
We
be in the
missed
Bahamas
an
right now.
opportunity.
We missed an opportunity.
We did.
Oh. Maggie, you got any good stories?
I'm with Hannah. Like, I don't remember the actual.
I do remember one time too.
It's just going in.
Like, if you're sitting in traffic, you know how people are like walking on the side of the road, like walking to their
Those are the
cars.
best
And
memories.
there was like a guy, and he was really drunk, and he was walking, and Rebecca kept like motioning for him and telling him he could come in, and then Rebecca would lock the door, and he would try to get in, and then she'd go a little bit, and then she'd do the same thing again. She'd be like, "Come on, you can ride with us," and he would like pull on the door, and it would be locked, and then we'd take off.
You know, I tell you,
Those are fun stories.
my favorite memories of the three of y'all were, you had two older brothers. You had me and Adam, and you guys have a younger brother.
Yep.
But it was always the three of y'all.
Yes.
Y'all-
it
y'all-
I
was.
lived at their
Y'all,
house.
y'all
Yes.
grew up more sisters.
Yes, we did.
And then I think we can all agree that Sharon, your mom, is the most creative person that can come up with arts and crafts, clothing,
Oh,
whatever.
Yeah, remember our little
But-
STP and 43
Yeah,
dresses?
no. What I remember
They
is,
look like this
do you
tablecloth.
do you remember? Do y'all remember your birthday dresses
yes.
that had the
The
birthday
birthday
cake on
cake.
it?
We
And
have
the
a
She
picture.
made those.
She
we
made
have
them.
a
She
picture
made them.
those dresses.
And
on
y'all
a
would
race
all,
car here.
but y'all would always
in
be
the-
dressed the same. The three of y'all would
Yes.
always be dressed because y'all were more like sisters.
But y'all had the STP dress for one race. What race was that? And I had the Mellow Yellow
Yes.
dress.
Rockingham, I think.
Rockingham.
Yeah.
My dad won Rockingham one time, and I fell off the car in Victory Lane, and they got mad at
You
me.
won a lot of Rockinghams.
I think,
You designed a car for Rockingham
was that Rockingham? I drew the pumpkin.
that was on the hood of it.
Yep.
Yep.
We covered a lot in 2 minutes right there.
That's
did.
all you remember is that we all dressed alike?
No, I just remember that y'all, to me and Adam, y'all were like, the two of you were like having two more sisters.
Well, when Mom would make us something to match, she
They
always
would
made
match
the
Montgomery
third.
Lake. So
Yeah, she
anywhere we
made
always
three.
went, the three of y'all.
Yeah.
So me and Adam basically had three little sisters growing up because it was, if me and Adam had to go somewhere, she went to y'all's house
Yeah.
and basically lived with y'all.
I did.
Well, and Adam was the oldest grandchild.
Adam was the oldest grandkid.
and I'm the oldest granddaughter, but the first 5 or 6 of us,
we were all close.
my
together.
memories of my grandparents and doing things and going places are more you guys because we're all the same age, as opposed to like, you know, like, well, and Sarah too, like maybe Richard and Sarah too, but like Kyle, Margaret, like I don't remember as much just because they're so much younger than us.
Because that reminds me of do you remember the year, it might have been 92, I don't remember, but do you remember the year we all went to Disney and they put Dad in the King's car?
In the parade.
No, in the racetrack.
Yes.
Remember they had
But they did sit in the parade.
Yes,
they were in the parade too.
But remember they put a Mellayella and an STP car in the racetrack deal.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I do remember that.
But that was like a family, but it wasn't all. I mean, it was the Farlows. It was a couple of the Lux, Brian and Rebecca, and then us.
I don't know what year that was though.
I don't either.
Remember.
What was our guide's name?
Oh yeah, that was before. That was before you paid $10,000 a day to go to Disney and have a personal guide.
Right.
But
Yeah.
we had a personal guide.
We had a personal guide.
And it probably was like 92. And we got to cut all the lines.
He was nice. I
But
think
it
his
was-
name was Steve. I'm
I
gonna
don't
go
know.
with Steve.
He was very outgoing.
I bet
And
you could
remember,
Facebook
we
him.
all loved him. He was like our
go use-
I
family.
don't have Facebook.
Go use the
I'm not on
Facebook.
social media.
I don't have the Facebook.
By the end of the week, he was like
But
family.
but
Remember, we
remember,
all
like
was
it was a big deal because they put those two cars into like rotate, so you could go stand in line, and if you got lucky enough to get up to the front, you got in Richard Petty's STP 43 car to drive around that racetrack.
You just said he was like family, and I think that makes me think of Ed and Randy,
Ed and Randy were family.
and then Henry,
They were a
Elizabeth, and
family.
Cheryl, and it were these
Yes.
families that got adopted at racetracks, right? It was like they were fans and they came,
Yep.
but it was such a small community at the time that Mama and Peppa would see them, and then they'd see them the next weekend,
Yep.
and then they'd see them
Well,
the
that's
next
how they
weekend,
met.
and
That's
then-
how they met all of them,
But then-
right? They met all of them at
They ended up
racetrack.
Over the
being like
years-
our second set of grandparents.
But over the
Ed and Randy were our
Ed and
grandparents.
Randy, yeah.
But over the years, like all the people that have worked for the race team or worked for the family or friends who had become part of our family, I feel like the king and queen and all of us, like we make them part of our family.
Yes.
Like I think
Yeah.
about Phil.
yeah.
in London.
Yeah.
You know, Grandma and Grandpa went to London one time and befriended a police officer named Phil.
And then we stayed with them.
And then it was like every time they went to London, they just stayed at
And they
Phil's
were our
house.
tour guides. Like
Yeah.
they would
And
take time
and
off
this is
work to
20
take us places.
This is 20-something, this is 30-something years ago.
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
To the point where Phil became such a part of our life that when Phil had a son, he named his son Adam.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yep.
And then fast forward 30-some years later, we go back to Goodwood this past year, and Phil picks us up at the airport.
Yeah.
Still hangs out with. But it's just like Ed and
We
Randy.
always build those
It's-
long-lasting relationships.
It stays, like we bring people in with us
Mm-hmm.
into this massive chaotic circle of family.
And they want to stay.
And for some reason, they like hanging out
Well,
with us.
They like us.
Grandma and Grandpa always had
They
an
like the
entourage.
chaos.
I mean, I don't know that everybody will stay, but once you're in, you're
Most
stuck.
of the time, I mean,
they
once you're
always-
in, we
they
can't.
had an entourage of people too, where they
did.
went. Like
They
they
did.
always had. If they went to a racetrack, they
Yeah.
had all of us. But then you're right, they had
They had
Ed and
their
Randy
Ed
or
and
an
Randys.
extra person with
Yeah.
them all the time. So yeah,
All right,
Do we have ADD? We've covered a lot.
we did.
Like,
But I think we covered. We should do this again.
Yeah. Part 2.
You know what we should do now that we've done this once? We need to go back and get more cousins, and bring
We
everybody
need to bring
in.
all the
we should do
cousins.
it
That's
over
what
Christmas.
we should try.
Yeah,
to
that
get
would be
all-
good
That'd be
to
a
do
lot
at
of kids. We
Christmas.
should do some with the great grandkids too and hear their perspective
Yeah.
on Peppa.
That would be
Because
precious.
Sullivan, like, I will say this, like, I think this is funny. We were talking about when did you realize that your dad or grandpa was famous, like, or a big deal. Sullivan is 12, and last year we were here and she'd gotten a shirt from the museum, and we were driving home, and we stopped.
Sharon charge you for that shirt.
Yes, no.
no, she didn't.
I said yes, no. We got a family discount. So we stopped at like a Wendy's or Chick-fil-A or something, and the girl at the cash register looked at Sullivan and she goes, "Did you go to the Richard Petty Museum?" And Sullivan went, "Yes." And she goes, "Are you a Richard Petty fan?" And Sullivan kind of looked at me and she goes, "How does she know who Richard Petty is?" And it was in that moment,
Yeah.
like, because to my kids, like cars, like circling back around to
Right.
that, it's like, which I love cars because they get to hear Mama's voice
Yes,
in it
yes.
too. So it's like
Yeah.
this sweet moment.
Yes, it is.
But like they didn't see him in the same
Yeah.
way. But that goes back to that little world. Like
Right.
in Randleman and North Carolina, racing is a big deal. Where we grow, my family lives in Nashville. It's just all music.
But
It's not.
it's
But for her,
NASCAR's a big deal now because you got the track out there, and it's nationwide. But for the longest time, racing was a
was
very
just right
southeastern.
here. And when we grew up here,
it was a southeastern
yes.
thing.
Well, I will say too, like, okay, Reed was doing a report this past year on a baseball player. Okay, and it's like a wax museum project. Like, you have to do this whole project, create like a PowerPoint, and then you have to dress up like whoever the
You will,
report.
yeah.
So he did a report on this baseball player, and one of the things was that he had won the Medal of Freedom. And he was like, "That is so cool." And I'm like, "Your grandpa won the Medal of Freedom."
There's one
And he
sitting
was
right
like,
there.
"What?" And I was like, "It's in the museum. You can go see it anytime you want to."
Yeah.
And for him, he was like, "Wow, that's like a really, really big deal." But I was like, "No, your grandpa's a bigger deal than, I mean, not, but you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, he is a big deal too.
He's a big
Like,
deal.
yes, you think this baseball player is a big deal, and he was, but like, yeah.
But to him, that's just his grandpa, his
Yeah.
great grandpa.
Well, that's why, I mean, when people would say stuff all the time, like, well, how does it feel? You know, like when we were younger, like, well, how does it feel? And you're like, well, I don't know. He's just
just
my
Pepper.
grandpa. Like,
puts
how do
his
you
pants
feel
on
about
the
your
sa-
grandpa?
He
Like,
puts his pants on one leg at a
it's-
time.
well, that's really cool. Okay, well, I mean, like, he's just my grandpa.
My
like
kids have
yours.
said stuff like that before. We were at our pool this summer, and there was a little boy with race cars playing at our pool, and he had a Mr. the King.
Yeah.
And Sloan was like, "There's Peepaw.
Yeah.
He's got a Peepaw car."
Yeah.
And then we were at a store one time, and Sutton was with me, and she was like, "Mom, there's Peepaw," and it was his picture on like a clock on the
Yes,
wall, and
yeah.
like everybody looked at us,
yeah.
and I was like, "Oh, that does look like Paul." Like I just kind of worded it.
And we're moving.
Yeah,
and
we
going.
changed the
We
subject.
sold it. It was like 3 or 4. There was a stand-up of Pepo in our grocery store, and she
I remember that.
thought it was him.
She ran at him.
And she took off running and just threw her arms around this.
In the
and she
store,
just looked at
yelling
me like,
Pepo.
why is there?
I remember that video.
Why is this a cutout? She just kept going, "Hey Pepo, hey Pepo."
It is cool to see your kids see stuff like
Yeah.
that.
Or like when they see him on TV. Like when they see him on TV, or
Especially
something,
Mr.
they
the
think it's really
King.
cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It is neat. It's special.
Yeah, it is special.
It's a unique experience.
All right. We'll do this
This
again.
was good.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
Good.
We would like to get more grandkids.
Yeah,
though.
we'll
That
get
would
more
be fun.
grandkids.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody, for watching.
I hope we didn't say anything inappropriate.
I know.
Should I not have said maxi pad?
No.
I'm worried about the maxi pad.
No.
I know. He's going to have to do a lot of editing.
Wait, don't take out the Leap
We-
Boy story. I asked for permission.
We
I asked for permission.
we covered throw up. We covered drinking. We covered maxi pads.
Leave the maxi pads. Don't. What's on your list to take out?
There were a couple stories
literally.
that I was going to say, and then I was like,
Literally.
maybe I shouldn't.
I said it. As soon as I said it, I'm like,
Do a voiceover.
no. But as soon as I said it, I'm like, just move on to the next thing because this whole section right here has got to go now.